Hello, friends, and welcome to the Cold War Prepper. My name is Lee. I'm not a doomsdayer. I don't like to throw out clickbait. I don't like to scare people or anything else, and I stay away from politics because no matter what you say, you're going to offend 50% of the population. That's why I really gravitate towards some fantastic channels. I love Prepper Dog, and that's DAWG. I love Prepping by Faith. And there's another fantastic one, Van City Prepper. They put out some really phenomenal videos. I would strongly encourage you to watch, especially those three. And I'll be referring to others as I go along. There's another good one, Apartment Prepper, and she's a fantastic supporter, and she and I can collaborate, and she constantly keeps me refreshed and reminding me of things that I have forgotten. So there's a lot of great channels out there that I would encourage you to see that don't necessarily get you up in arms over things that are or will be or whatever. But today, the purpose of my video is I'm going to do a couple things. I'm going to put a video down below. It's only 10 minutes long. I want you to look at it because I think we've forgotten what our government is and what it's supposed to be. It's a phenomenal 10-minute video on the 5 basic forms of government and what kind of government we have. And there's a big misunderstanding about what kind of government we have, and I think that's because of several other things. Do me a favor, go to your local representative or to your senator, federal senator or federal representative. They will give you a free copy of the Constitution of the United States. And why do I say that? Because the only things that is authorized for Congress to do are delineated in Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution. They're allowed to do those things and those things only. Nowhere in there does it say even Social Security is authorized by Congress. Obamacare is not authorized by Congress. The authorization or declination of, quote, a right to privacy, which has been interpreted as a right to abortion, is not in the Constitution. So if you don't find it specifically outlined in Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, you have to go to Article 10, the 10th Amendment, which says anything that's not delineated in Article 1, Section 8 is reserved to the states, which is exactly what we see the draft position of the Supreme Court saying, is that they're going to reinforce the Constitution as it is written. Now, there is one exception to the limited powers of the federal government, and that is Amendment 15. Okay. Now, Amendment 15 says that the right of citizens of the United States 16. That Congress shall have the power to lay and collect taxes on incomes. So the only tax that the federal government can actually place upon you is, the income tax that was authorized in the 16th Amendment. So make sure you go back and study those things. But like I said, get a copy of this and read it. There's a lot more to it than what people are saying. There's a lot more limitations to it than what people are saying. For example, in the First Amendment, it says the Congress shall make no laws respecting the establishment of a religion. And then they forget that there's a semicolon and a nor, comma, the restriction or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. So they can't restrict you, and they can't tell you that you can't pray in public or you can't do this or that, because what they had to do was the Supreme Court had to say that if you say a prayer, you're establishing a religion, like the Church of England, simply by saying a prayer. And that's a total abrogation of their responsibilities. But anyhow, get this. This explains, this is Hamilton, Adams, and a couple others, Payne, reflecting on what they intended for this to mean. And so it's their personal recollections of what this means and how they interpret it, which is quite different from what a lot of other people do. For example, a lot of people use the separation of church and state, which is nothing more than a personal letter between President Thomas Jefferson and the Danbury, Connecticut First Methodist Church, or First Baptist Church. And the personal letters that Jefferson said that there is an inseparable wall between the federal government and religion, in the fact that the federal government could not impose a restriction on the people who were supposedly oppressing the First Baptist Church of Danbury, Connecticut. I'm going to put a link to a fantastic 10-minute video down below. I would like for you to watch it. It's on the 5 basic forms of government. And So in that, you'll find the difference between a democracy and a republic. And we are a republic, we are not a democracy, but I think it's critical you understand the difference between the two. And you'll also understand the difference between the two parties when you see that. The other thing I would like for you to do is, and I'll put a link down below for the 45 goals. W. Cleon Skousen wrote this book in the late 40s, in the mid 40s, right after World War II, on the 45 goals of the Communist Party USA and what they wanted to accomplish in order to take over the country. I would like for you, whether you get the book and read it or whether you go to the website and look at that I'm going to post below, specifically look at goals number 15, 17, 20, 21, 25, 26, 27, 28, 30, 38, 40, and 41, and ask yourself, is every one of these coming true today? What is this long-term plan that has been going on? Okay, so now that part's done, I would like to take you back to a recap of one of my favorite books. It was mandatory reading when I was in school. I don't think they do it anymore. But this is a book that was published. Get my hip somewhere where I can tolerate it. That's why I'm not going to church today. I'm afraid I'd be a real distraction to everybody else because I just can't sit in one position too long. But let's go back to 17th August 1945. And this guy put out a book. And I'm going to give you the theory behind the book, and then we can talk about the author. We can talk about the title of the book afterwards. But see if this prediction in 1945, he actually wrote it from 1943 on, but see if this prediction isn't the world as we see it today. So there's this farm in England, and it's owned by Mr. Jones. And old Major, the big bore, decides that everything is unjust, and that Mr. Jones is not appreciating the animals for what they are. So he calls a conclave of all the animals, and four key characters emerge here. We have Snowball, Napoleon, and Squealer, who are the three pigs who promote an idea of animalism and animal rights and everything else. Well, 3 days after this proposition by old Major, he passes away, and the three little piglets determine that they're going to bring forth this thing that old Major had promoted. One of the first early followers is a draft horse by the name of Boxer, and he says, I will work harder to get this accomplished so that they can have he's going to work harder so they can have a society where they aren't abused and don't have to work too hard, okay? So Snowball takes over teaching animals how to read, and Napoleon takes on the job of teaching the politics, the theories of animalism. And so then they've kind of kicked Mr. Jones off the farm in the first battle. Mr. Jones comes back in the Battle of the Cowshed. And they kick Mr. Jones off at the Battle of the Cowshed, and then he loses his farm to the animals. And then Snowball comes up with a brilliant idea. Now remember, Snowball's the one who is teaching fact, who's teaching reading. He says, you know what we should do? We should build a windmill and have it produce electricity. And of course, Napoleon is opposed to this. Now, who's Napoleon? He's the one who's promoting ideology over facts and reading. He's the one who's promoting animalism. And so he has 9 of his young students, these little piglets, drive Snowball off the farm. And at some point, Snowball comes back, and right after Snowball's return, then one of the other farmers comes in and tears down the windmill and destroys it and everything else. Well, what happens is they need a scapegoat. They don't want to admit that it's a human being. So Napoleon blames it on Snowball. It was a windstorm. I'm sorry, windstorm tears down the windmill, and the humans are saying, "Wait, you guys just didn't build it strong enough. You didn't build it right. You don't have the right education. Let us help you." And they said, "No, we don't want your help. You're humans. We can do this ourselves." So they have to find a scapegoat. So who do they find? They find the scapegoat with Snowball, the guy who's teaching facts, who's teaching reality, and so they drive him away, and then what happens is they go out and they do a purge of all the other animals that ever followed Snowball, so that now they only have one king, and that is Napoleon. And so then the new mantra comes on, and the new mantra is that Napoleon is always right. And then they rewrite their history. how much of this is looking exactly like what's going on today. They rewrite their history so that so that Napoleon is always right, and Snowball is a villain. He's a terrible guy. And so then Mr. Frederick comes in and tries to take over the animal farm. And Boxer, remember the horse, the draft horse that was going to work harder so that in the future he didn't have to work at all? And he's the early adopter of this ideology. Well, he's wounded. And so he's not being very productive and very good to the community. And one day, everybody notices that Boxer's not there, and they ask Napoleon, where's Boxer? And he says, oh, we had to send him off to the hospital in order to get well. But what Boxer really did was he was sold to a glue factory so that Napoleon could have more money to get more whiskey. And they become more and more like the humans that they overthrew over time. And if you watch that movie that I'm going to list below about the 10 forms of basic government, you're going to find that both this book, that video, and the reality that we live in today are all the exact same thing. We are moving towards, we've got this disruptive element, the Napoleon, who is using the children, the young generation, with a false history in order to overthrow the existing government, creating chaos. And then what we demand is, once we're in chaos, we say, somebody has to take over and give us law and order. Well, who's the logical person to take over and give us law and order? The person who created the chaos. And so you're going to find that there's an awful lot here. So do me a couple favors. Number one, get a copy of the Constitution. Read it. Okay, refresh yourself. Number two, get a copy of the Federalist Papers. Understand what the authors of the Constitution intended for it to say and what they intended for it to mean to us. Number three, go to the link below on a 10-minute video on the 5 basic forms of government. Watch it, understand it, see where we are, and understand that there is chaos being created so that they can institute an oligarchy or communism or fascism, whatever you want to call it, and that can only evolve after chaos. And then finally, get a copy of The Naked Communist, or online, read the 45 key tenets or key goals of the Communist Party USA as it was expressed. And so focus on numbers 15, 17, 20, 21, 25, 26, 27, 28, 30, 38, 40, and 41, and say, oh my gosh, that's what's happening today. So the name of the book that I just gave you, the synopsis, I didn't go into the ending of it, where actually the pigs do end up being more like humans. But the name of the book is Animal Farm, written by George Orwell, right around my birthday in 1945, 7 years before I was born, but right around my birthday, 17th of August. Okay, so I just wanted to share that with you. Do a little research, understand what's going on, and I think if you can understand what's going on, you can also understand what we need to do in order to save our republic. So remember, we're all in this together, so we can come out the other side together. Take care. Bye-bye.